I'll first start off with the history of voting in UK. And I extract this information from the journal article with the title The Early History of the Ballot in England. Secret voting was seen in the 14th and 15th centuries in some places like Lancaster, Norwich Green Regis, and New York. London used in the ballot in the 16th and 17th centuries, notably in the Court of Albany. Different towns employed methods like ballot boxes, dots, and scratching for voting. Thus, England had a history of use of ballot back in the medieval times. It can be seen as part of England's electoral tradition for centuries. Next is the voting system in UK. Firstly is the first past the post method. It is used in the House of Commons and local councils in England and Wales. Voters mark an X next to their preferred candidate and the candidate with the most votes win. Next is the alternative vote. It is used for specific conditions like committee chairs in the House of Commons and by election for hereditary peers. Voters rank candidates by marking 1, 2, 3, and so on. If a candidate gets over 50% of first preference votes, they win. Otherwise, votes are reallocated until a candidate has more than the others combined. Additionally, supplementary vote. It is used for mayoral and police and crime commissioner elections in England and Wales. Voters have a first and second preference. If a candidate gets over 50% of first preference votes, they win. Otherwise, the top two candidates remain, and the second preference are counted to determine the winner, followed by the single transferable vote. It is used in various elections, including deputy speakers in the House of Commons, Northern Ireland Assembly, and the local elections in Scotland and Northern Ireland. Voters rank candidates, and candidates need to reach a quota to be elected. Surplus votes and eliminations are used to distribute preference until the candidates are elected. And next is the additional member system. It is used in the Scottish Parliament, National Assembly for Wales, and the London Assembly. Voters have 2 votes for constituency members and appointees. Constituency members are elected by first past votes, and additional members are elected based on the party list votes, aiming for proportionality. And lastly is the closed party list. It is used for the European Parliament elections between the 1999 and 2019 in England, Scotland, and Wales. Voters choose parties, not candidates, and seats are allocated based on the proportion of votes received by each party. The parties determine the candidate order on the list.
Now, the voting age in UK. In England, the voting age for local election, including mayoral and police and crime commissioner, is 18 and above. However, Scotland has lowered the voting age to 16 for local and above election. This followed the extension of the vote to 16 and 17 years old, allowing them to take part in the 2014 referendum on Scottish independence. This applied to elections to the Scottish Parliament and local government elections in Scotland. In Wales, the Wales Act 2017 gave the National Assembly for Wales and Welsh Government legislative competence for the administration of the Assembly and local government elections in Wales, including the franchise for those elections. The National Assembly for Wales passed the Senate and Election Wales Act 2020, amended the law to allow 16 and 17 years old to register to vote at Welsh Parliament election held on or after 5 April 2021. The Local Government and Election Wales Bill was introduced, including provision to lower the voting age from 18 to 16 for the local government election. However, the Police and Crime Commissioner election are a reserved matter and the voting age remained at 18. Moreover, in Northern Ireland, the voting age is 18 for all the elections. The private bill that meant to reduce the voting age to 16, but it remains 18 and above until today, is the Representation of the People, Young People's Enfranchisement Bill, which was sponsored by Lord Adonis Labour in 2017. The bill would reduce the voting age to 16 for UK parliamentary elections and all local elections in England. There have been several discussions regarding this matter. Until today, there is no further stage currently scheduled for this bill. It remained at second reading in House of Lords on Friday, 28 January 2022. Thus, the voting age for the UK parliamentary election currently stands still at 18 and above. Here are some of the points of view from Lord Adonis, which are the members of the House of Lords during the second reading of the bill. My Lord, Voting is the sheet anchor of our democracy. This proposal to extend vote to 16 and 17 years old is an idea whose time has come. Start by the fact that there is consensus in Scotland across all political parties in favour of the introduction of vote for 16 and 17 years old, which universally regarded as a democratic success and lead to a huge promotion of civic engagement in the great nation. I believe that it is simply a matter of time. The House of Commons voted against it last week, but I suspect that in the next parliament or the parliament after, there will be consensus for introducing this reform into national election across the United Kingdom and the local election in England. He also agreed with Ruth Davidson, who joined as the Nobel Baroness, Lady Davidson, and a former lady of the Scottish Conservative, which described herself as a fully paid-up member of the Vote at 16 club, and said, "We deem 16 years old adult enough to join the army, to have sex, get married, leave home, and work full-time. They are old enough to vote."
Next, I will discuss the pros and cons of lowering the voting age in the UK to 16. The first advantage is to increase the younger people's political interest. Lowering the age to 16 would allow younger people to spark a passion for politics and need an interest at an earlier age. Politicians always moan about young people not being engaged in politics and having no interest at all. But if they are not allowed to vote, why would they care? For example, would you care about a football team if you weren't allowed to attend their matches or watch them on TV? The answer would most likely be no. It's difficult to have a passion for a subject you cannot engage in. Then, the next is that voter turnout will increase. Young voters have a large turnout as most of the first-time voters are really excited about the elections. All the voters between 16 to 18 will be first-time voters, so they will be really excited to vote in their first elections. This stands true specifically for countries like America, where taking the voters out can be a significant problem at times. In the 2020 US president elections, voting turnout remained 66.7%. In 2016, the turnout was only 55.7%. So more inclusion of young people will increase voter turnout. The third merit is low voting age increases social engagement and civic responsibilities. By the age of 18, most people successfully develop habits that influence their whole life. Now, here is the catch. When younger people are forced to make a decision at the age of 16 to 18, they feel a sense of responsibility and end up developing lifelong habits of social engagement. Lastly, the participation of youth positively impacts society. When the voting age is induced to 16, younger generations will have to say in the legislative making process, as they will be directly choosing their own representative. This will initiate a public debate on so many important issues within the society that matter to common people. One of the easiest ways to create social mobilization is to initiate social debates in any society. When young people get a chance to vote, they start debating about the pressing issues in society, thus bringing more ideas to change the society around them. On the other hand, the demerit of lowering the voting age is parents can influence the voting decisions of young people. Voting is a personal choice, and it needs to be as well as it is the whole point of voting. What if parents are supporting a different candidate than their children, and they decide to influence the voting decision of their child? Who will be responsible then? Well, not all parents will be a big fan of the idea that they should impose their will on the voting decision of their children. Ruling out this possibility is also an unfair approach. So at the end of the day, we get some people who vote twice and some kids whose voting rights are being compromised by their parents. This will especially stand true in the presence of mail-in and early voting, where influencing the voting choice of children is an easy job. Other than that, critics contend that younger individuals may lack the maturity and life experience necessary to make well-informed decisions regarding complex political subjects. This would result in voting patterns that do not accurately reflect the best interests of society as a whole. Thirdly, teens already take more risk than adults. They have higher smoking rates, higher testing while driving rates, and practice safe sex less often. Teens at the age of 16 are going through physical changes, including brain development, which creates emotional instabilities that lead to rebellion. Giving them the right to vote in these circumstances would be helpful for some teens, but it may also be destructive for others. There will be teens who vote a specific way because they know it will spite their parents. Lastly, lowering the voting age may offer voting rights without a clear understanding. Teens are more social today with online networks than ever before. They are exposed to more information with internet access than any other generation before them. Having access to data is not the same as understanding it. With all the time pressures present in the average 16 years old, from school to work to athletes and everything in between, they may not have enough time to truly study the critical issues up for debate in an election. Having them guess at who is a better candidate is not the same as understanding the issues through discussion.
Moving on, we will be suggesting two reforms in the UK. The Electoral Reform Society is an independent organization leading the campaign for the democratic rights of the citizens of Britain. They have been fighting for fair votes and a better democracy since 1884, with thousands of members across the country and an elected council of 12 members. First, we suggest electoral reform in Westminster. The problem is lack of proportional representation. Proportional representation is the idea that seats in Parliament should be proportionate to the votes cast. According to the Electoral Reform Society, Westminster's first-past-the-post electoral system does not wholly or truly represent the voices of Britain. This is due to the weak and unpredictable link between how much the support party received at the polling booth, the number of seats gained by that party at the House of Commons. This can be seen by comparing the votes in the election and the seats in Parliament. Both are not proportional with each other, especially the minority vote. Problems that arise from this are major issues disregarded. Jonathan Reynolds, MP for Stourbridge and Hyde Labours at the Westminster Hall debate on electoral reforms in October 2017 states, it is an interesting question whether our political culture has shaped our electoral system or whether our electoral system has shaped our political culture. It seems to me we are going further and further down a road towards deep deductive tribalism that has forgotten the purpose of politics, that is, to solve problems. And the list for the votes from the UK 2019 election under the first-past-the-post system shows that over 22 million votes, which is 70.8%, were ignored because they went to non-elected candidates or were surplus to what the elected candidate needed. This shows that the issues that the 22 million voters care about will most probably be left unsolved, only to be dealt with when there is too much to ignore. Besides, there is fostering of division between citizens. When the results map can only have one color per constituency, in reality, you'll never find a tile where everyone is the same. With the first-past-the-post system, everything is black and white, hiding the many errors of agreement. Every issue becomes a stick to defeat an opponent, rather than something to be solved to the advantage of all. It's impossible for one MP to represent everyone in their constituency. However, with the single transferable vote electoral system, you get a group of MPs for each area, representing the mix of opinions in that area. With proportional representation, opinions in society are represented in proportion to their numbers. The SQB is used for Northern Ireland Assembly elections and local elections in Scotland and Northern Ireland. It was also used in Northern Ireland to elect members of European Parliament from 1979 to 2019. The SQB provides a fairer and more proportional voting system, and better ensures the outcomes reflect more accurately voters' choices of diversity of opinion. The second reform we suggest is to replace the House of Lords. The House of Lords is not just any member's club. It has powers over the laws of the land. Quoting the Electoral Reform Society, it's time to end this rotten system of patronage and replace the unelected lords with a smaller elected chamber, where the people of this country and not former prime ministers choose who shape the laws we all live under. Three problems arise from this are too many members for an unelected chamber. With over 800 members, the House of Lords is the second largest chamber in the world, with National People's Congress as first. The House of Lords gets larger with fresh appointments after each change of government. The total membership of the House of Lords was 827 at July 2023, 52 more compared to 775 members in January 2022. The House of Lords creates a heavy and unacceptable burden to the public. Peers are able to claim £323 a day tax-free each day they attend, plus some travel costs. Between April 2019 and March 2020,
£17.7 million was spent on lords, allowances and expenses, with the average peer claiming £30,687. We suggest to replace the House of Lords with a fully elected second chamber of fixed membership, with the public deciding who has the right to stay. A smaller, fairly elected second chamber would also be better for taxpayers. Note that in the fifth report of the Lord Speaker's Committee on the Status of the House, one of the key elements of the proposal is to reduce to 600 members over a decade under a two-cut one-in formula. The second problem is hereditary peers. In 1997, the Labour government was elected on a manifesto commitment to remove the right of hereditary peers to sit and vote in the House of Lords. In the White Paper of 1999, he asserted that a place in the legislature should be reserved for those who achieve it on their own merits. No individuals shall have the right solely on the basis of the actions and positions of their ancestors. The House of Lords Act 1999 ended the right of most of the hereditary peers to sit and vote in the House of Lords. However, until today, there is no universal agreement on the composition of a fully reformed upper house, and so the hereditary element still remains pending the realization of long-time reform. In March 2007, the House of Lords voted to remove the remaining hereditary peers by 391 votes to 111. In addition, in July 2012, the House of Commons gave a second reading to the coalition government's House of Lords reform bill, which would have removed the remaining hereditary peers. However, the bill was thereafter abandoned. In January 2022, there are still 88 hereditary peers as members of the House of Lords. In the fourth report of the Lord Speaker's Committee on the Size of the House, the Lord Speaker's Committee recommended that by-elections for hereditary peers should be abolished. The committee also noted that nearly all hereditary peers are men. This skews the gender balance of the House. The committee said that the imbalance was impossible to justify in the modern legislature. This brings us to our last problem, which is the centralizing power, unrepresentative and out of date. In 2022, the House of Lords is dominated by London, the south east and east of England, with a majority of peers of 55% residing in these three regions. By contrast, peers in the east and west Midlands make up just over 6% of the kingdom, leaving many areas of the UK woefully underrepresentation. The average age in Lords is 70, and while the Lords were recently given the ability to retire, they can sit in the Lords for the rest of their life if they want to. Female representation in the Lords has only recently reached 28%, which does not reflect the shuddering feminism as of today. In December 2022, the Labour Party published a report of the Commission on the UK's future, proposing to abolish the current undemocratic House of Lords and replacing it with a democratic chamber that is more representative of the nations and regions of the United Kingdom. The report proposed that the new second chamber would be competent to the House of Commons with the new role of safeguarding the UK Constitution, but maintain the current primacy of the House of Lords. Say the new chamber must have electoral legitimacy and be markedly smaller than the present Lords. We suggest reform of an elected territorial second chamber with real diversity of party candidates that could serve as a forum in which the UK's constituent parties could work together and would guarantee a voice for the nations and regions of the UK. To speak as one, to scrutinize legislation and our constitutional settlement with clear communities in mind.
Now I will be talking about the history of voting in Malaysia. The first election in Malaysia, which took place in 1951 and subsequent years, marked a significant step towards self-government and eventual independence. Established through the Federation of Malaya Agreement 1948, these early elections included municipality election in Penang in 1951 and the Kuala Lumpur municipal election in 1952. These elections fostered collaboration among different racial parties and set the stage for the first federal general election on July 27, 1955. In these federal elections, the Alliance Party, led by Tunku Abdul Rahman, and comprised of UMNO, MCA, and MIC, won 51 out of 52 seats, securing a substantial majority of 80% voter support. This victory was a clear endorsement of policies aimed at achieving independence, introducing compulsory education, establishing a local civil service, protecting human rights, and safeguarding the rights of the Malay rulers. Tunku Abdul Rahman subsequently became the first chief minister, and through the efforts of the Alliance Party, the Federation of Malaya achieved independence within 2 years of the federal election. Next is the Malaysian election system. It is used the same voting system as the UK, which is the first past the post method, offering voters a choice between two main parties. This often leads to a left and right party ultimately in power, with third and smaller parties struggling to gain a significant presence. the FPTP system tends to favor single-party governments and coalition governments are less common. While FPTP ensures a clear opposition in the legislature, it also allows a strong government and provides enough opposition seats for effective checks and a viable alternative to the ruling.
Vote 18 was an initiative of the Malaysian government to enfranchise the people of Malaysia and was one of the long-awaited electoral reform for Malaysia. Dewan Rakyat passed the Constitutional Amendment Bill 2019, which reduced the voting age in national and state elections from 21 years to 18 years old. It received 211 votes, surpassing two-thirds majority required for constitutional amendment in the 222-member House. The bill amends Article 119 Sub 1 Sub A of the Federal Constitution of Malaysia by substituting 18 years for 21 years as the voting age for election to the Dewan Rakyat and to any state legislative assembly. It also amends Article 47 to reduce the age at which a person can stand for election to the Dewan Rakyat to 18 years old, and similar amends Section 5 of the 8th Schedule of the Constitution to allow persons aged 18 and over to stand for election to the Legislative Assembly of the state in which they reside. Some provision regarding Article 119 Sub 3 of the Constitution, it disqualifies a person from voting in an election if Sub A, on the qualifying date he is detained as a person of unsound mind or is serving a sentence of imprisonment, or Sub B, having before the qualifying date been convicted in any part of the Commonwealth of an offence and sentenced to death or imprisonment for a term existing 12 months. He remains liable on the qualifying date to suffer any punishment of the offence.
Now, moving to the merits and demerits of lowering the voting age in Malaysia. First, the merits. By the age of 18, many things in Malaysia has been legalized, including employment, marriage, driving license, loan application, home ownerships, tax, and others. So why not voting? It has been identified that by allowing young people to vote, it will help to create a habit of voting from a young age. There's a long-standing agreement that voting is habitual. When a young voter casts their first vote, there is a higher tendency for them to appreciate the process of voting and promote civic-mindedness at a young age. Secondly, by allowing young voters to vote, it actually helps their voice be heard. In higher education, such as universities and colleges, elections are conducted to choose student representatives, such as the recent elections that happened to choose the board of directors for Student Council and the Taylor's Law Society. These representatives can be agents to represent us. Bringing it back, young voters, especially students, are actually exposed to the working of elections, and by lowering the suffrage voting age, they'll appreciate the power of democracy and know the correct channel to raise any complaints. Next, the state of democracy will improve because those who have concerns in areas that affect them are allowed and able to participate in the outcome of the matter. 18-year-olds who can vote gives them the favorable circumstance to express their voices, thus causing the government to focus on policies that affect this particular group. Youths are an integral part of the society. In this era, youths have become more vocal and aware of many issues such as politics, mental health, and etc. To further acquaint youths to be more politically conscious, Malaysia in a meeting echoed its continued undertaking to prepare youths to partake and be more aware of world and political affairs. Youths are able to have a say in matters that affects them by voting for candidates who they feel would champion a cause that is close to them. There are laws that allow youths to voice out their views and dissatisfaction. For example, the Peaceful Assembly Act 2012 grants permission to those below the age of 21 but above 15 to participate in peaceful assemblies. Therefore, in a case where youths are of the opinion that certain assemblies uphold causes that are relevant or significant to them, they are authorized to attend such events and let their voices be heard. Same goes to voting. When those of the age 18 are given the opportunity to vote, this will grant them the opportunity to be heard by casting their votes and additionally empowering them. Next, the feeling of inclusiveness. By allowing young voters to participate helps to develop the interests of political system. Excluding young people from voting may result them to shy away and from understanding and appreciating elections and how it progresses to develop the country through elected governments. There are always two sides of the coin. Some of the demerits of lowering the voting age is firstly regarding turnout. It is believed that older voters are more likely to vote. In the UK, a study was conducted shows that young people do not trust politicians. As far as Malaysia is concerned, their lack of interest in local and international politics
is not something new, as students show no interest to cast their votes in elections held in universities or colleges, causing them to be less experienced in making decisions in the ballot box. It may also be the lack of confidence, as teenagers doubt their own ability and self-esteem to make the right decision. Hence, this will somehow affect the motivation of young people to vote, as they opine that politicians will not trust them. Secondly, it will raise the quality of the vote. It is argued that by allowing young people to vote, it may jeopardize the value of the vote due to young voters lack knowledge of political issues and are too easily influenced by radical politics or voluntary voting. Next, at the age of 18, they are considered too young to carry on and fulfill important responsibilities in the country's political system. Also, with social media, young voters are easily exploited, in particular with false news or on the social media. Lastly, lowering the voting age does not necessarily prove success. Take Iran, for example, although the suffrage age was initially at 15, but it was later raised to 18 in 2007. 4 months later, the Iranian cabinet proposed a bill to reverse the voting age.
Through reforms in Malaysia, the first issue will be voting age. The age of voter was too young. Most teenagers never really understand political issues. In Malaysia, political issues are always a sensitive topic where students are not allowed to discuss during the class or in the school. But after the student graduates from high school, they immediately have to vote for the country. Most of the students vote based on what their parents, relatives told them to vote for, but these teenagers will never have the concept of the political issues of Malaysia. The education department of the country should add some political topics to the syllabus of the high school student. Let these teenagers have the concept of the current political issues of the country and make it in a more interesting way to learn, so that they will realize the importance of this voting system and they will be more involved to it. The second issue will be accessibility regional figures, a very obvious issue that happened in Malaysia. When a party wins all the seats in the province or district, the first past the post system tends to create regions where one party wins all or nearly all of the majority of votes of the parliamentary seats. This reinforces the politics is the battleground defined by who you are and where you live, which is extremely unfair for the voters. Although Malaysia is an Islamic country, but voters mostly vote based on their region without considering the strength of the candidates. The more serious issue that will happen in a small state or town is that the candidates tend to corrupt the voters to win the elections. So the government should pay more attention to this issue, and once they find that the candidates did the corruption, the candidates should be disqualified.
In conclusion, the reason for lowering the voting age is not surprising because all habit in life start young. Everyone accepts that 16 and 17 years old are young adults. It is absolute right that we exercise democratic practice with voting at that age. Voting is part of the process of becoming a full citizen and adult, just as 16 and 17 years old are preparing themselves for full participation in adult life. Participating in election is a fundamental part of being an adult and a citizen.
I am the view that the voting age should not be reduced. Young people are not sufficiently aware of the political world and will most probably vote with the influence of others. Also, political parties and the media have to engage with young people in order for them to make an independent vote choice.
By understanding and noticing the merits and demerits of lowering the voting age, we can find solutions to overcome or improve the demerits and work efficiently to maintain the merits.
To conclude that, since the government decided to lower the minimum voting age, they should also consider that the voters should have the knowledge of political issues of Malaysia. The best way to ensure the voters are well aware of the political issues will be adding the political tasks to the high school or secondary school syllabus. For another issues, the government should pay more attention to it because the main reasons that the voters vote for an election is to ensure the country is governed by a trustable, responsible, and a fair government. The more fair the election votes by the people, the better the government will govern the country.
Kita satu bangsa, kita satu